The story begins with a couple who are about to get married. Both had studied arts and were very much in love, and they had a daughter. And it seemed like the end of a drama, but just a couple of years later, Junsu's husband was murdered and lost his life. His wife was the only suspect, as she was the last to see him alive. Although she swore that she saw another woman leaving the studio, during the investigation she seemed too calm, as if nothing was happening. This made her even more suspicious because on the day of the crime, she asked her students and other friends not to go near the studio. They planned to rekindle their romance and have another baby. But at the crime scene, they found another woman's stockings, a student of her husband. Although everything was very suspicious, they didn't have any evidence against her. That's why they called Prosecutor Kan, a former police officer who handles the most difficult cases. Despite having a lot of work, he begins following Jansu all day and notices he doesn't appear sad. She also began selling her husband's belongings, which made the prosecutor even more intrigued and obsessed with the case. Then they interrogate the student. She says that nothing ever happened between her and her teacher, and that it was all a misunderstanding. The prosecutor decides to investigate further, even though it was no longer his job. That's how he discovers the truth about the human weapon. The student had an alibi. The taxi driver who took her confirms her story, so once again, Yoon-soo was the main suspect. Because of this, she is taken into preventive custody. The detective believes Jun-soo killed her husband after discovering his affair with a student. She keeps telling him over and over that that's not possible, but since there are no other suspects, they put her in preventive detention in jail. Jun-soo is mistreated by the other inmates. Even though she was scared, she kept hiding. The prosecutor is praised for finding the alleged culprit. Just as quickly as he sought a promotion, his boss tells him that he must sentence her as quickly as possible so that people's attention focuses on her and ignores a fraud case they were trying to cover up. As a result, the prosecutor releases recordings showing Junsu was dissatisfied with her husband. This causes the media to create a huge scandal and interpret that she killed him because she found out her husband was cheating on her with his student. With the manipulated information, even her students start saying that she was acting suspiciously and that she probably is a murderer. Due to all this social pressure, her lawyer tells her that they won't be able to prove her innocence. The only thing they can do is reduce her sentence, meaning she has to admit to the crime in order to get fewer years. She initially agrees, but at the trial changes her mind, claiming she didn't kill her husband, causing the trial to be postponed. At the same time, a woman murdered a couple of dentists. The crime was a real scandal because she worked with them for a year and gained their trust just to kill them. Apparently, the dentists weren't good people. They always humiliated her and treated her like their slave. That's why she poisoned them to get revenge. As they died, she watched and waited for them to regret treating her so badly. When they heard her statement, the police threw her out as a heartless psychopath, because there didn't seem to be a hint of remorse on her face. Before going to prison, she gave a warning to the dentist's son, telling him that karma would come for him too. Back to Yunsu, her friend doubted her innocence. So, she explains, she sent her daughter to a temporary home to avoid people blaming her too. When she returns to her cellmates start bothering her. But Yunsu wasn't in the mood, so she stands up to the toughest one among them. Later, the psychopath arrives. Since she was young, many wanted to intimidate her. But she makes it very clear to them that she's not in danger. She is the danger. Because of this, they send her to solitary confinement, the same place where Yunsu was locked up for fighting. That place is supposed to be for reflection, and they're not allowed to talk to anyone. But there was a crack in the wall through which Yoon and Yunsu could talk. She confesses that she saw her on television and knows she's telling the truth, so she proposes a deal. Since she has a life sentence, can she confess that she killed her husband? That way she could go free. Yunsu doesn't understand why she would help her like that. The psychopath tells her that in exchange for her freedom, she must do her a very special favor. She must end the life of the dentist's son. Yunsu tells her no, but the psychopath replies that in the end, she will end up accepting. A few days later, Yunsu's lawyer had resigned, since her case didn't have many options. If this continues, she'll be convicted and unable to defend herself. Because of this, the psychopath assumes that Yunsu will agree. So, on the day of the trial, she pleads guilty. And furthermore, she says that she killed Yunsu's husband and that she was the woman seen leaving the studio that night. As a result, the press creates a scandal and accuses the prosecutor's office of abusing power and mishandling the investigation. This makes the prosecutor's superiors upset because they might find out that they used the teacher's case to cover up another case. A few days later, both of them have to go to an audit. The psychopath starts mocking Yunsu, which makes her angry and she bites her. But in reality, it was a signal to tell her that she accepts the deal. During the interrogation, the prosecutor didn't believe anything the psychopath said as she described everything in detail, as if she were reading from a script she had been given. When he asks her why she killed Yunsu's husband, she replies that there isn't always a reason. Her answer makes the prosecutor even more suspicious because psychopaths always have a motive, even if it's a ridiculous one. Because of this, his boss wants him to investigate further before the trial. They wouldn't need to retract anymore. That's why the prosecutor visits the prison to find evidence they made a deal before testifying. But the crack they used to communicate was no longer there. The psychopath had sealed it with rice paste. As a result, the prosecutor becomes even angrier and orders both cells searched again, but nothing is found. The prosecutor was obsessed with proving that Junsu was the real culprit, so he decided to conduct some polygraph tests. Junsu doesn't agree since she had gotten a new lawyer, but because he was an unknown lawyer, he was determined to prove her innocence to boost his career. When they gave the psychopath the test, everything was very strange. It was as if she was telling half-truths. Because of this, the test was practically useless. This makes the prosecutor even angrier. The lawyer, for his part, also puts on a show about the case and informs the press that the prosecutor is determined to make Junsu the culprit. Due to strong public opinion, the authorities have no choice but to grant Junsu parole. That way, they wouldn't admit their mistake and she wouldn't be in prison anymore. The prosecutor, on behalf of his boss, tells him that he can't do it, since if something goes wrong, he has to be there to take responsibility. When he got home, many people had left notes of support for Junsu. She was happy because she could be with her daughter again. But what she didn't know was that she had to wear a tracker. Even though someone else pleaded guilty, she was still a suspect, at least until a judge says otherwise. At night, her best friend visits her. Junsu was upset because she left the temporary home, so she gives her a punch so they're even. After that, they go back to being best friends. The next day, Junsu wanted to return to her normal life, but she would soon realize that nothing would ever be the same. People on the street judged her or looked at her with fear. This made her feel bad. That's why she wanted to find the real killer of her husband. For her part, the psychopath gets a new lawyer. He was one of the best in the country. He took her case because his wife was intrigued by it, so he wants to help her. Although the psychopath knows she won't be able to get her sentence reduced, that's why she doesn't care who takes her case. The next day, Junsu goes to the dentist's house and starts going through their things. That's how she starts coming back again and again. But she never does anything because she's too scared to even try. In the morning, the psychopath sent her a letter, which lawyer J.I. delivered in person. When she reads the letter, the psychopath told her to really enjoy her time with her daughter, because if she doesn't keep her part of the deal, she will confess that she didn't kill her husband, and that way Junsu will have to go back to prison. The deal was that Junsu would end the life of the dentist's son, but she had never killed anyone, so she didn't think she could do it. Before going to sleep, he starts to feel like someone is watching him when he turns off the lights. He can see someone at his door when he goes outside. It turns out that it was the same woman he saw the night her husband was murdered. Because of this, he decides to follow her. But since she had a tracker, the police quickly find her and arrest her. Although she repeatedly insisted her husband's killer was in front of her, the police largely ignored her because she was on parole. When the lawyer finds out, he is furious and threatens to sue them if they don't let her go home. Since the recordings show that there was a masked person in her yard, the police get scared and agree to let her return home. The prosecutor arrives and tells Junsu that while he was chasing the woman, the psychopath was missing from the prison. She believes it could have been her, which frustrates her. She thinks that if she doesn't keep her part of the deal, things will get worse. Days later, the prosecutor keeps investigating the case, and the lawyer does the same. That's how he discovers that the woman left by subway, but the police lost track of her. Then, Junsu returns to the crime scene, since the university wanted to exhibit her husband's paintings. She takes advantage of that, goes in, what's happening, what's happening, what's happening, what's happening, what? He learns she moved, making him suspicious again. That same day, does the prosecutor investigate the psychopath? He suspected she escaped to torment Junsu, but the timelines didn't match. Whoa. A few days later is the trial of the psychopath. Yoon So decides to attend to see if she says anything about her husband's death. Yoon knew he was there, so she looks at the camera and tells him to hurry up and not do anything stupid. This makes the prosecutor suspicious, but the psychopath says she was referring to herself and that it wasn't a hidden message or anything like that. Yeon-soo was very nervous because she understood the message. At the end of the trial, the victim's father tells her to go to hell already. Yoon-soo, aware her time is short, resumes following the dentist's son and discovers his double life. He acted like a good boy with his grandfather, but often returned to his parents' house to play video games. He also seemed involved in some questionable business. The next day, Yoon-soo has to meet with his probation officer, but when he leaves the police station, he runs into the dentist's son. Apparently, he was also on probation. Because of this, he investigates further and accesses the police computer, discovering he had a serious case from 2 years ago. When he checks online, he realizes that the guy was accused of rape, but was acquitted because he was a minor. And also, there wasn't enough evidence of his crime, and this meant he wasn't punished properly. Back in prison, the psychopath sees how they were beating up the fat girl since she would be released the next day. Since it was her last day, the bullies wanted to give her a farewell beating. But this time, they went too far and she ended up unconscious. Because of this, Yoon quickly starts hitting her, and the guards think she's attacking her. So they hit her to make her stop hurting her. But in reality, it was the opposite. With her blows, she managed to revive her, meaning she saved her life. Apparently, the psychopath had medical knowledge. Days later, Jun-soo and the lawyer find the mark of a watch at the crime scene. If it matches Eun's watch, that would be the proof they need to prove Jun-soo's innocence. But she knew they wouldn't match because Yoon wasn't her husband's killer. So she didn't want her lawyer to keep investigating because if they found out the psychopath was lying, Jun-soo would go back to prison. In the afternoon, she gets a call from the kindergarten. Her daughter was apparently lost. After searching for her for a long time, it turns out that the psychopath's new friend, the chubby girl whose life she saved, had her. She owed her a favor, so she used the chance to send a message. She told Jun-soo he doesn't have much time and shouldn't hesitate now. The lawyer gets suspicious and starts questioning the chubby girl, but Jun-soo tells him to stop and not to investigate any further. This message makes Jun-soo very scared because he thinks the psychopath has more power over the clock, so he decides to fulfill his part of the deal. That's why he breaks his tracker and tells the officer that he fell off his bike. That way, he would have an hour to commit his crime. When he arrives at the dentist's son's house, he tells him that he needs to do a gas inspection. The boy lets her in and Jun-soo attacks him from behind. The boy tries to defend himself, but Jun-soo had a stun gun and manages to overpower him. After taking pictures of him, she goes back home and luckily for her, the officer finds her. The next day, Jun-soo sends the photo to the psychopath. Seeing the lifeless boy, she tears up and swallows the photo to destroy evidence. For his part, the boy's grandfather informs the police that he has disappeared, so they start looking for him. The police didn't give it much importance because young people run away very often, but the prosecutor knew it was related to Jun-soo's case. So he decided to investigate again. Since it's the dentist's son, the press starts following the case. This makes the psychopath feel happy, but that day, a new inmate arrives. She apparently knew the psychopath, so during the night, she tells her that karma finally caught up with that bastard. The psychopath had swallowed a lot of pills, so she barely managed to hear what she said. She did this because supposedly her revenge was over, but the other inmates called the next day. Jun-soo uses this opportunity to visit her at the hospital. He tells her in great detail how the boy died, but here we find out that in reality, Jun-soo didn't have the courage to finish him off. He actually made a deal with the boy and told him to fake his death, at least for a couple of weeks until his deal with the psychopath is over and both of them can go on with their lives. Yoon already knew that because the photo she received was different from the photo he had. The photo he swallowed. The boy was really dead, and in Jun-soo's photo, it was clear that he was still alive. Because of this, the psychopath tells her that their deal is off, And during her trial, she will say that she didn't kill her husband. Junsu begs her to give him another chance, but the psychopath tells him it doesn't matter anymore because the boy is dead. At the same time, we see that the boy's grandfather arrived at his house and found his grandson's body in the refrigerator. Junsu thought the psychopath was lying, so he goes back to the house but finds the police at the crime scene. This draws a lot of media attention to the case because it was a premeditated crime. The whole family had been murdered. Junsu, for his part, was terrified because it meant someone else would know about his deal. The grandfather, for his part, was very angry because he had just lost his entire family. As a result, he chooses not to trust or cooperate with the police. At the same time, the lawyer starts to suspect Junsu since he had been acting too strange lately. Does he really think he made a deal with the psychopath to kill the boy in exchange for his freedom? Junsu denies everything and tells him that this is all just a misunderstanding. Then he goes to look for the psychopath's friend, the chubby girl who works at a cafe. Junsu threatens her and checks her phone. He thought the psychopath was threatening her, but the girl says no. So she only helps her because she saved her life and was the only one who treated her decently when they were in prison. Later, we find out that the boy's case was worse than we expected. The rape victim, not receiving justice, took her own life. Apparently, the dentists used their influence and paid off the witnesses so their son would go unpunished. But not satisfied with that, the boy had recorded his entire crime and sent the video to all of the victims' contacts. Cornered and without justice, the girl saw no other way out than to take her own life. Her father couldn't bear losing his daughter and also took his own life. Even though they reported him, the boy only received 2 years of house arrest. The victim had an older sister who was a doctor in Thailand, but she had supposedly also died. When the detective started investigating, he discovered that her older sister hadn't died, but that someone else had taken her place. That is, her older sister was still alive, and he suspected that the older sister was the psychopath. Yoon denies it all when he hears this and says proof is needed. Later, the new inmate receives a visit from a boy. Yeon sees her and starts to suspect her. When he gets the chance, he asks her to tell him everything. The young girl doesn't want to talk, so Yeon ends up attacking her and tries to finish her off. The prosecutor, for his part, was still obsessed with Junsu. Did he know she had something to do with it? When he checks her history, he discovers that she had gone to the boy's house several times over many days. Also, the day he died, her tracker broke. Was this too much of a coincidence? So the prosecutor requests preventive detention. But before the police arrive, the victim's grandfather breaks in and tells her he won't hurt her. He just wants to know if she caused his grandson's death. Junsu wanted to cooperate but didn't know the real killer, so he got scared and ran away. The police issue an alert and ask for her to be arrested. Junsu wants to find out the truth, so he removes the tracker so she won't be locked up. Meanwhile, in the prison, the new inmate is taken back to her cell. But she takes advantage of the guard's carelessness to tie a rope around her neck and jump from the second floor. Seeing her agonize, the psychopath remembers everything that happened before reaching this point. Apparently, that girl was the partner. She once saw her when she made a video call. She also remembers that they weren't just friends, but best friends. In a year, she would finish her internship and return to Korea to be with her family. But then the pandemic hit and she couldn't do it. Since she was very busy, she couldn't answer or talk to her younger sister for months. At that time, the psychopath wasn't actually a psychopath, but just an ordinary girl. Since she was caring for many COVID patients, she got infected and couldn't answer the phone for weeks. After recovering, she got the terrible news. They had sent her the video where her sister was abused. But that wasn't the worst part. Her supposed friends changed their testimony and made her little sister look like just anyone. Besides, the video was already on the internet and everyone was judging her. When she found out about all this, she was still devastated because she had lost her entire family. Therefore, she wanted to return to Korea, but the borders remained closed. Desperate, she tried to take her own life. Because of this, her colleagues tied her up and locked her in. Back to the present, the girl didn't lose her life. The officers acted quickly and managed to get her down, but her leg was broken. And if they didn't treat her, she would bleed to death. On the way to the hospital, since Yoon had medical knowledge, they asked him to save her. Even though she hated her for betraying her sister, she decides to help her, but she does it without saying anything. Sometime later, the prosecutor investigates Yoon-soo's house. Since she was now a fugitive, he had the perfect excuse to accuse her of all her alleged crimes. There was also evidence he was at the boy's house the day he died. Meanwhile, Yoon accompanies the girl to the hospital. Thanks to his intervention, the girl would not lose her life. Yoon-soo, for his part, calls his lawyer and tells him that she didn't kill the boy and that someone else is trying to frame him. The lawyer says he believes her, but before they continue, the detective arrives and asks for her phone. Later, Yoon-soo sneaked into the hospital and asks Yoon to help him, to tell him everything she knows about the real killer. She tells him that she received the photo a day before talking to her. The curious thing is that the photo was exactly the same as the one Yoon-soo had taken. That is, the person who wanted to frame him had been watching her all that time. Yoon wants to know who it is and suggests working together once they get out. She escapes the officers, but just as she seems about to succeed, one corners her. But behind her, the boy's grandfather appears. The old man hits the guard and tells Yoon that she shouldn't have killed his grandson, that she should have been satisfied with killing his parents. She tells him that he simply got his karma. When she tries to attack the old man, he ends up stabbing her. Although unfortunately for him, he didn't manage to kill her. He just sent her to the hospital. He left her badly injured, but she didn't accuse the old man of attacking her. Yoon-soo, for his part, left many clues to confuse the police and try to get the real killer's attention. He left clues for the detective, showing him that the photo she took is not the same as the photo of the lifeless boy. The next day, the lawyer meets Yoon, asking for all she knows about her. Yoon refuses to help, claiming she hasn't seen her. The lawyer asks her why she chose her, to which she replies that she seemed more desperate than her. And besides, she knew she didn't kill her husband, so she would be an easy target. That day, there was an art exhibition with Yoon-soo's husband's works. She went to see them and the cameras caught her. When the prosecutor arrived, Yoon-soo had already left. Then she does a live stream on her YouTube channel. She admits that she killed her husband and that she made a deal with Eun in exchange for killing the boy. She knows it was wrong, but she reveals that she actually didn't kill the boy. They made a separate deal for him to fake his death until Eun believes it and stops blackmailing her. But someone was following her and actually killed the boy to frame her. She also blames the prosecutor for not being impartial, saying he saw her as the culprit from the start, which biased the investigation. Because of this, the public starts calling the police to demand an explanation. Eun, for his part, talks to the inmate he saved. She apologizes for betraying her sister and tells him that she regrets it every day of her life. Then she tells him that the boy hadn't changed, he was still up to his old tricks. Now that his parents weren't around, he had more freedom. He even extorted his classmates to get money from them. One of them installed cameras in his house and apparently managed to see when he was murdered. That means there was a witness and evidence that Yoon-soo wasn't the real killer. At the same time, the lawyer confronts the prosecutor for prejudging Yoon-soo and asks him to be impartial so that he can conduct an objective investigation. For his part, Yoon-soo finally found his husband's killer. It was lawyer Yee's wife, which means that all this time, lawyer Yee had been deceiving and manipulating her to make her the suspect of all the crimes. Although Yoon-soo had discovered them, now he needed evidence to prove it. But at the moment, he found out that the boy's grandfather had kidnapped his daughter, so he quickly goes to him to save her. Yoon also found out about it, so she decided to help her. She pretends that the girl stabbed her, and when she's in the operating room, she threatens the nurse and manages to escape. In the taxi, she staples her wounds as if nothing happened. The lawyer, for his part, had destroyed some evidence and was planning to end everything that same day. Will the grandfather defeat Yoon-soo or will Yoon-soo defeat him? Anyway, they would win, so they just had to wait for the fight to start, but they didn't count on Yoon having escaped. The prosecutor, for his part, was starting to suspect lawyer Yee, since Yoon-soo had placed the photo of his wife among the evidence. Yoon-soo arrives at the house where the grandfather's daughter was kidnapped. He wasn't a monster, he just wanted answers. He wanted to know if she was the one who killed his grandson, Yoon-soo. She says no, explaining someone else is behind it and trying to frame her. The lawyer had planned this, which is why he sent her the video of her attacking his grandson, Yoon-soo. He tells her that she did attack him, but she didn't take his life. The grandfather doesn't believe her and tells her to confess the truth once and for all. Otherwise, he will kill her in front of her daughter. But before anything serious happens, Yoon arrives and starts saying that if his grandson had admitted his crime, none of this would have happened. Yoon and the grandfather fight, and Yoon Soo joins in to stop him. All three fall from the second floor but survive. This ruins the lawyer's plans because now he will have to get rid of Yoon-soo himself. She, for her part, knows that this is not over yet, so she leaves her daughter with the prosecutor and tells her that he will take care of her until everything is over. At night, Lawyer Ji tells his wife that they are running out of time and that they must get rid of Yoon-soo as quickly as possible. For their part, Yoon-soo and Eun make a plan to expose Lawyer Ji. Since they are involved in this problem, they decide not to keep any secrets. That's why Yoon-soo asks her to tell her real name. Yoon tells her that her real name is Kang So-hye, and that Yoon is the name her dear friend gave her. At her boarding school, she reportedly saved a girl's life. She became her best friend when So-hye got sick. Yoon took care of her when she lost her family and was there to support her. But then she got COVID too. With her pre-existing condition, it hit her harder. Before she died, she asked her to end her life. That way, they could switch places and So could use her name to complete her revenge. Now we find out what really happened before the murder. Yoon-soo's husband was a respected artist at the university. The university director was a very important man and held him in high regard. Lawyer Jae Eyes and his wife wanted to do business with the director, so his wife gave the director a painting by an African artist when she met him. Yeon's husband, Soo, said that this artist had many accusations of plagiarism, and because of that, his paintings weren't worth much. This angered the director at Lawyer Jae-eyed and his wife, leading to the cancellation of their business dealings. The lawyer asked the artist to retract his statement to keep his business going, but he refused, saying he would never defend an artist who plagiarizes. They keep calling him to apologize, but despite many attempts, nothing works. So he decides to visit his studio to confront him in person. But again, Yoon's husband, Soo, tells them to leave or else he'll call the police. The lawyer was about to give up once again, but his wife tells him she's had enough, so she hits him with the wine bottle and then takes his life. Her husband couldn't do anything but watch as everything happened, while his wife finished off the artist. When she regained consciousness, the lawyer told her to leave and poured acid to erase her traces. When Yoon-soo arrived, Lawyer Ji was right outside watching everything. In the present, police questioned the grandfather. He admits he wanted to avenge his grandson and that Lawyer Ji and his wife offered to help him. They also showed Yoon-soo the video where she appears to be the culprit, but Yoon got the full video. There, it shows that Yoon-soo did not end the boy's life. The prosecutor now believes her and knows that the culprit is Lawyer Ji. At the same time, Yoon-soo returns to her husband's studio where the lawyer was trying to destroy the evidence against his wife, since she already knew everything. Lawyer Ji admits his guilt and tells her that he killed her husband, but Yoon-soo already knew the truth. He tells her that the real murderer is his wife. She was behind all of it. She even manipulated Lawyer Ji to help her cover everything up. When he realizes he's been caught, he laughs and says everything would have worked if not for Yoon. She, for her part, was listening to everything and reveals herself to help Yoon-soo. Annoyed, she attacks Lawyer Ji, but he was stronger and manages to capture her. The lawyer says they have no evidence and he just needs Yoon-soo to take all the blame. Because of this, Yoon starts to fight him. But since she was weak, she was no match for Lawyer Ji. In the end, he manages to capture her and orders Yoon-soo to destroy the evidence against him, or else he will kill Yoon-soo. She didn't want anyone else to get hurt, so she ends up obeying. But when she deletes everything, Lawyer Ji says they both must die for him and his wife to live in peace. But at the moment, Yoon tells her that she will help her because she wants to make up for everything she did. So she stabs herself. Lawyer Ji doesn't understand what's happening, and at that moment, the prosecutor also arrives. Seeing this, Yoon-soo was furious with Lawyer Ji's life, but Yoon steps forward and stabs him. First, he tells her that she's too good and shouldn't stain her hands with blood. As a result of his multiple wounds, Yoon ends up losing his life. Yoon-soo is acquitted of all her crimes after a long time. The prosecutor had all the evidence where it was clear that Lawyer Jae was the main culprit. Even so, Yoon-soo was charged with minor offenses. The boy's grandfather, now deceased and remorseful, wrote an appeal requesting no action against him, acknowledging his grandson's wrongdoing. And if his parents hadn't covered it up, Or maybe if his grandson had truly repented, probably none of this would have happened. The prosecutor, for his part, now wants to reveal the whole truth and lock up the real murderer. That is the lawyer's wife, I. Here we find out that she was the real psychopath. All this time she had been pretending. Even now she blames him and tells the prosecutor that she is just another victim. But now we see that it really wasn't like that. When she killed Yunsu's husband, she didn't hesitate for a second after ending the artist's life. She just laughed and told her husband that it's what he deserved for making them angry. Sometime later, Yunsu and her daughter traveled to Thailand. They wanted to return the watch to Yoon. It was their way of thanking Hyesun and her friend for everything they had done for her. In the final scene, it is shown that Hyesun and Yunsu had met before. Yunsu got married in a neighborhood where Hyesun and her little sister lived. That was the real reason why Hyesun helped her. Not because she was desperate or easy to manipulate. That's how this story ends. Let me know in the comments what you thought about the drama. I liked almost everything. There's just one small detail. The motive for the murder seems ridiculous to me, but psychopaths don't always need a reason to commit their crimes. Thank you for watching the video until the end. I hope you enjoyed the summary. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any summaries. See you in the next story.